Well, Bob, it's certainly quite the story. Brian Campbell, you got to think, one of the more unlikely winners we've seen in recent history on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it does go to show you what the PGA Tour is made up of. You know, we've sort of pushed the players like Brian Campbell aside, and when we talk about tournaments that aren't signature events and the weak fields, but every single one of those guys who was teeing it up last week, including Brian, including Potgieter, you know, they all have great stories. There's always something behind it. And now when you find out what Brian Campbell went through to get there, you found out what his game is like. He averages 277 yards off the tee. I mean, Scully, you'd blow it by him. I mean, it's just, it's amazing to think of what that guy has gone through and the trust, and you heard it in those comments there, what he had to do. And those are great stories. And now, you know, who knows? Brian Campbell may go on and win 2 or 3 or 4 more tournaments. It's those kind of stories that make golf great. And everybody has a starting point that where we finally recognize these people. And I think Brian Campbell's is great. And I wish that we could see more of these kind of stories. And I hope that we don't lose those when the PGA Tour takes whatever its next steps are. But it's really starting to become a bit of a closed shop, and it's tougher for guys like Brian Campbell to do what he did and write such a great story as he just did on the weekend.
Yeah, weeks like last week at the Mexico Open at VidantaWorld are becoming some of my favorite on the PGA Tour, Bob, because we get to tell the stories of players who maybe a lot of people don't know about, like Brian Campbell, the shortest hitter on the PGA Tour. And we'll get to the shot he hit in the second playoff hole, one of the craziest breaks we'll ever seen. Much more on that in Winners, Weird, and What. So the shortest hitter on the PGA Tour beats the longest hitter on the PGA Tour in a playoff. That's Aldrich Potgieter, also the youngest player on the PGA Tour. Given what you've seen from Potgieter, not only in Mexico, but he had a chance at the Farmers Insurance Open as well this season. What are your expectations for this kid here moving forward?
Man, I mean, if he can do anything with a putter, he's going to be very, very dangerous. And you look at how far he's hitting it. I mean, he hit a driver off the deck, driver from the fairway, no tee, 323 yards. He was hitting 4 irons like 270 yards. It's sort of mind-boggling, but, you know, he's got to be more well-rounded, obviously, if he wants to really do things. But if he does get any kind of semblance out of his short game, out of his putter, then look out. This guy could be really, really, really special. I think it's fun to watch him hit it as far as he hits it. And you know, he's still a young guy. He's only 20. He's still learning these golf courses. And most of these ones he's never seen before. So to come out and try and get it around and know when you can use your driver and when you can use your long irons and certain situations like that, that's a different skill. You know, that comes with maturity. And I think if you're a big hitter as a young player, you tend to rely on just power, and there's a lot more to golf than just power. You have to have those subtle shots as well.
For a guy who had the close call at the Mexico Open at VidantaWorld, he was in the final group Sunday, the Farmers Insurance Open. He will be back contending this season.